The way that this is going to go is really we're just going to allow for whatever the universe wants us to go into. I don't have a set agenda. I don't have anything that I plan on talking about. It's really just I'm going to use my intuition and we're going to bounce around and intuit some learnings from one another. So I'll engage with somebody and we'll have a conversation and stuff will come up and we'll go as deep as we need to go as that comes up. And if anybody has anything that they want to share, please chime in. Please do not worry about taking up time or space. Okay. This is time for you. We all have our genius, right? And we are all responsible for intuiting the learnings from each other. And so when I'm talking to you about something or you're talking to somebody else about something, it's your job to think, how does this apply to my situation? And so if you're the one that we're talking and going back and forth, everyone is learning from what you're talking about. You're not taking up time. You're not taking up space. Couple rules, quote unquote. Number one, approach everything with a heart of love. I don't think I need to say that to this group so much. It's first and foremost being supportive, being there for one another. Patience and gentleness. I've talked about that in a couple of my last videos. Patience with yourself, patience with others, gentleness. Some of these topics can be tough and touchy and hard. And so be kind to yourself. This is a reminder for me too. I just saw Carrie pop in and she sent me an email last night that was interesting and we could start there. Or if somebody has a burning desire to get rolling with something, please let me know.
I just want to say, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for organizing the lines thing, because without that and without your interpretation of that, I would be completely overwhelmed and totally lost. And that has really completely and utterly helped me entirely. So I really am very grateful. I just want you to know that. Thank you.
Absolutely, Deb. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting to me that the lines aren't in the main Gene Keys book at all. And I get it. It's already a massive book. so that was probably the reason that he didn't put them in there. But it's like they're necessary to know, to be able to understand.
So helpful knowing that this one goes to there, and it helps me do the golden path thing. So I can go and I go, oh, so that goes with that. So that's my thing. And that's what I've got to learn. It's honestly, it's just really a great service. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there one that stuck out to you, like one sphere, like one of the set of lines that?
What I'm finding is that actually, one, it describes me completely and utterly to a T, and it's the person that I always knew I was. And it also tells me that it's okay to have my struggles, because they are the struggles that I've been having, that I'm thinking, why have I got that? Why can't I get out of that? So the way that you're going from your Dharma, and you did the pairings,
Mm-hmm.
and then you did the Dharma, and then you did the stuff about how we inherit the stuff from our families, and the IQ, the SQ, and the EQ,
Mm-hmm.
and how it all interconnects. Honestly, just all of it, to be honest, is the way it links, because I've been listening constantly to my keys so that I can try to remember them. But without that line hookup,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I would be getting as much benefit out of it as possible. I could probably leave it and just go, oh yeah, no, that's me. I understand that. I'll work towards that. But with what you're doing with the lines, it propels me to actually binge and work out how that comes into it, and how that comes into, and what aspect of me that's talking to.
Absolutely.
So I just think all of them have just been really important. Obviously, I need to keep going over them because there's so much information that you give that I think when I came in, your man was saying how it's a lot of information to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a ton. There's so much there. Renee, please chime in.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So like when I first got the Gene Keys book, I did the profile, right? Just went out there and did the free profile, but really didn't dive into all the aspects. So I really appreciate your videos, and I've only been watching them. Like Jessica and I are cousins, so I think maybe the last month or so, maybe a little longer, but give or take. And I can't tell you how helpful they have been with, even Deb mentioned the lines, to break down the lines, so helpful. Even the IQ, SQ, EQ, all of it. So I'm really just really shouting out, like, thank you so much, because I actually read the whole book, the Gene Keys book last year. And it was like perfect timing because, you know, just starting to go a little deeper actually. And what I can say about, and I would always like reference, or if someone says, you know, what's a tool, Renee, that may have worked for you, I would always reference like the Gene Keys book for one. And now with this different sequences, actually reading the books and actually getting ready to take a class, one of his classes, and go through those as well. But it did, I know initially it really helped my nervous system. So what I mean by that, by reading the shadows and going through the gifts and not understanding the CDs as much over the first year, I felt a big difference in my physical body actually. So I just kind of wanted to say that it really helped in major ways in that way. And
tell
just
me more about that, because that is like what is drawing me in so much right now. That is the biggest shift. And I've mentioned this in a couple of my videos too. This is the reason that I stuck with the Gene Keys. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't like, it's like somebody else's hands come in on my body and shift things around. What happens with you? I'm so curious.
So I guess what's happened to me, I just feel a lot like, I guess, looser, where the body isn't as tight. The pressure, I used to have a lot of pressure in my chest area at times. I've been actually on this journey as far as the inward journey for about 3 years now. And slowly but surely just working through, doing a little shadow work. And I think the Gene Keys has helped a lot with even just pointing out the different shadows so that I can actually personally take a look at them. So all I can say is that I feel a lot more, the body feels a lot more relaxed. And with that said, I'm able to actually go a little deeper and into I guess, whatever the Gene Keys is doing for me. I can't put it in words. You know, I talk to Jessica a lot, explaining some of the process. It's always like at times it's hard to describe it.
Yeah.
Hard to describe what's happening, the transformation at times, because I think language doesn't necessarily do the best job at, oh, you know, I have lots of breakthrough. I had insights. My life has changed dramatically. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago, actually.
For sure.
I'm really looking at your behaviors and patterns. So you really, I think with the Gene Keys, it allows you to relax enough to see these aspects that either you shut down, close down, and embrace them. And I love gentleness too. You have to be, and one of my things used to be is just, we have to learn just to be kind to ourselves through the process. And that's one of my things I used to say.
Beautiful.
Just be gentle, be kind.
Yeah.
Because it's painful too. I mean, I'm not going to say it was all, it's not been all that.
And that's why the golden path is structured as it is, right? That's why Richard recommends starting with the activation sequence first, because that's what settles us into our physical body. And whatever is happening there, what I still don't understand, but there's something that like you said, our nervous system just lets go. And because that happens, that's what allows us to get into the Venus work, right? If our body's so tight and we're constantly locked down, somebody else coming to you is just going to trigger you 10 times out of 10. And then you have no opportunity to start to change that behavior. And then the other thing I'll say before I'm going to go over to Michael, and then Deb, I see you have your hand up too. The ineffable thing is funny, right? The fact that there's not language, because I agree. And it really, it's hard to talk about it on YouTube, because I'm like, how do I put this stuff into words? I don't really know.
You do a great job. I mean, you are, like you said, teacher. I mean, you've helped tremendously for myself. I appreciate you, actually.
Thank you so much.
And one more thing I want to say is that I'm able to find a lot of humor, like hindsight.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so I have more humor in my life than ever, because I guess at one time I took things so seriously, and not being able to take things as seriously and even able to laugh at a lot of it.
Yeah, that you probably have some third lines. That's that third line energy, being able to look back and just laugh at it. Michael, what do you got, brother?
I just want to say that just even listening to Deb and Renee and just being here confirms that I'm on the right path as far as, and I were talking earlier, the past 4 years, I really dove into, let's say, everything esoteric. I just went, and the thing is that it's all great and I love it. My mind is geared towards that. But at some point in time, and I guess it's because the universe tries to push you out of the nest, so to speak. It was like, okay, you could stick all this in there, but at what point in time do you absorb it and apply it? So the thing about the gene keys, and this is one thing that I can't speak for everyone else, but I know for me personally, it has been the lightning rod as far as helping to, okay, a good analogy is that if I go hiking and somewhere that I don't know, I want to go with somebody that knows the path. And the language ties in the things that I was attracted to, but it also doesn't overwhelm me with that. It says, okay, from these different doctrines, in simplicity, these are things that, and these are things that you can apply to your life, and that there's a universe that's working for you, and it's trying to get your attention, and it's trying to put you on the path. So, and really short, and why I'm so thankful for you is because you're like, okay, let's just break this down and let's go step by step. This is trail A and it leads to trail B. So my first thing on the challenge was the 33rd gene key, and it starts off with the shadow, and that's forgetting. And so I'm like, okay, forgetting. That means, to me, what it meant is that I learn all this stuff, but I keep forgetting it. And that's why I keep jumping from the same thing over and over again. Okay, well, why am I forgetting? Then you move up to what the gift is, mindful. Okay, so there's the second tool. Here's what's not wrong, but this is what's going on with you. This is the tool that you apply to that. I'm like, good gosh, my gosh, how simple is that? But how fantastic is that? So I want to, here's the thing. I want to stick in that area, and I want to take it slow. I want to sit with it, and I want to move gently down this path and get the foundation that I've wanted this whole time. So moving on from that sphere to the next, then you start seeing, oh, now let's work on codependence. That's my 19th gene key. Okay. And codependence applies to a lot of things. It's not just relationships, it's patterns, structures, thought processes. In short, that's where I'm at. I'm sticking with my challenge, and then I'm going to move on. And the wonderful thing about it, and the wonderful thing about being here, is that I feel like this is the wavelength that I'm supposed to be in. And I'm thankful for you. And I'm thankful for you ladies and whoever else is on here, because maybe we're all on the same wavelength right now, and we can be trail partners.
I know we're all on the same wavelength. That's why we're here. That's how we wound up together, for sure.
So
and
thank
I
you.
think there's a quote that Richard has that I absolutely love. And the first time he said it, it stuck out in my mind so much, which was, beware of shallow drafts of wisdom. They're intoxicating.
Oh, wow.
And I just loved that, because that's a lot of what I see, right? Is people bouncing around from system to system, thing to thing, teacher to teacher, constantly looking and never finding. And really, all of us, whether it's me, whether it's Richard, somebody in human design, and it could be anybody, we're all saying the exact same thing, right? It's all this frequency of awakening and love, and even going back to the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita, like, they're all saying the same thing. And when I look at the 33rd gene key, that's what I think of, is we are forgetting this story that has been passed down for generation after generation, that we are supported and we are safe and it will work out. And that doesn't mean that you get to sit back and do nothing, right? We still need intention, and we still need to do our part. But if you do that, there is this force out there that organizes everything for you. And it is so beautiful if you can just let go into that, which is much easier said than done. Another thing that came up for me with you is, you mentioned, again, the sort of physical symptoms, the physical stuff came up again. And I'm really convinced that anything physical, especially chronic stuff, obviously, if we get into a car accident and something's happening, that's a different story. But chronic issues, I'm almost positive that it is our body and our higher self, our soul, screaming at us to get us to pay attention. It's either telling us that we need to start doing something that we're not doing, or that we need to stop doing something that we are doing. And so often we go into, like, we try and treat the symptoms, and we're constantly chasing ourselves around in a circle, and maybe it gets better for a few months, but then it comes back. And I think it's because we're not getting to that underlying issue. And the last thing I have for you, Michael, and then I'm going to go to you, Deb, is hear you that you love to have a partner and a guide along the path, and you have everything that you need already inside of you and inside of your heart to know where to focus on and what to do and what to be with. And it's just a matter of slowing down and honoring that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I received that.
Good. Deb, please.
Okay, I was just going to talk into the how it makes me feel. So mine are like about being in service and trusting and stuff like that. So it just, the self-acceptance that comes through it is just such a complete and a release. It's just, it's okay for me to actually be this different to everybody else. I was always different because I was supposed to be different because I've got a job and I'm supposed to do that through my difference. So that's beautiful. So since then, going for walks and stuff, I was always very much into nature anyway, but the colors now, it's just like it's opened my brain to actually be able to relax and see what I see and perceive what I perceive. So I'm funnier because I'm allowing myself to be funny. And the other thing that's come up is the like sometimes I get really overwhelmed with technology and stuff, and having to fit into the way that the world works and stuff like that. But now, instead of when I'm pushing against myself, now I can release that and I can go and lay down by the river for hours. And that's okay, rather than lay down by the river thinking I should be doing this. Why aren't I doing that? And I can just go and lay down by the river. That's beautiful. And the other thing about going back to what Michael was saying about the shadow and everything, I was having this particularly wonderful family day. And one of my shadows is when I needing to be seen. Like the reason that I need to be seen on the gift is because I have lots to share. And my thing is to raise the vibration of the planet and the people. And that's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's why I'm so different. So I was having this brilliant time, and then all of a sudden I said something that was not conducive to who I am, what was going on with the situation, which is one of my shadows. It's the talking, but the not talking because you need to. It's the talking because you need to be seen. But it was because I now know about that existence, it was like an immediate example of that personally for me to go, that's what it means. I don't need to do that anymore. And so I could release that.
Beautiful.
It's just I've only been doing it a couple of weeks, but I'm just so much nicer to myself.
Yes.
And so much nicer in my own situation. And I can now go to places and not say a single word all evening if I don't feel the need to, because it's not about me joining in for the sake of joining in, because I've got actually nothing to say in this situation anyway. So so I've got a lot of release out of it. Thank you.
That's beautiful. And those moments of catching it in action, like those are the moments. Like that is the time to pay attention when you're like in it. And all of a sudden you have this moment of going back to the 33rd, this moment of awareness of holy crap, this is it right now. Lindsay or Sophie, do you have anything that you want to chime in on here with Deb or on your own?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I really wanted to be on this call. I'm in the Pearl sequence class right now, and we do have the opportunity to be on calls with people, but it's not quite as intimate as this, and really appreciate the opportunity and your teachings. I've been in it for a couple of years now. I'm trying to work through it meticulously and with a lot of, anyway, to let it soak in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard sometimes to leave it alone because it's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do my other stuff I have to do during the day and leave it for dessert, in the evening. I get to do gene keys. So my question I would like to talk about, if that's all right, is in the Pearl sequence. So I'm working on that because I don't want to be a truck driver anymore. And I have a couple of keys in there that have a 5,
Mm-hmm.
line 5. And one of them is about power. Actually, I've got, one of them about power. And so I'm on the flip side of that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be that big person. So I'm not sure how to really work with that. I push myself out as far as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to take a break.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Clearly, it's important to you, right? This work is something that is deeply touching, and that is the entryway into the transformation that you're talking about. First of all, thank you for showing up and for digging in. And one thing that I can say about fifth lines is that they are the line of the leader, and they're leaders because they don't want to lead.
Yeah, I got that right.
If you're full of yourself and you're just out there to make yourself better and stronger and more powerful, that's not a leader. That's what we're dealing with now in the politics in the US.
Yeah. I started to channel angels some years back, and I would take the messages down in a notebook and put them under my chair for years.
Beautiful.
And now I'm called to talk to people about it. And so I'm just doing it step by step. It does say, and I was looking at my profile this morning, and just the brief profile saying about my purpose, saying be patient.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna take you some time, and that I can't control the process. So,
Do you still have those messages that you wrote down?
oh yeah. So I started a blog when I had my awakening and started my spiritual journey. And I wrote that for a couple of years, and then the angels came in, and it was so much more fun to do angel messages than do my own. I quit doing my own messages, and I just now do angels. So that's what my website's about, pretty much. And I have compiled the first 2 years of messages that I put under my chair in a book, and I'm going to publish that by the end of the year.
Beautiful. It sounds like the pearl work that you're doing is exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You sound unsure, or maybe feel like you're not doing it the right way, or that it's not happening fast enough, but you're doing it. Everything that you just told me is you doing the work, both internally and externally.
Yeah. I guess it bothers me that I don't want to. You know, I mean,
Does
I
anybody
feel,
else? I saw Michael, your hand came up during. Does anybody else have anything they want to say to Lindsay regarding this situation?
Yeah, me.
Please, Sophie.
Oh, Lindsay, you have such a beautiful femininity. Oh my God, you don't see it. I see it.
oh,
So,
thank you.
meanwhile, while all the process of patience and I don't know, whatever long ride things are happening, maybe you try to recharge yourself out of your femininity. And you can do that by doing the things for yourself that makes you feel good. Just a little bit, just a tiny delight. It doesn't have to be much, no? Just to brush your hair, or just to, I don't know, sight, or just to, oh, what a beautiful dream I had. Whatever it is. I know that life is very hard, and especially when you're such a beautiful femininity, it can get pretty damn hard. So maybe you treat yourself in your ways, and that will, I don't know, at least give you the energy and the vibration to surpass what you don't want in your life. Yes, that's it. That's
Beautiful.
it. You're welcome. You're lovely, Lindsay. I have something to say to Lila or Lila.
Sure.
She just joined. Is it right now at the moment or otherwise?
Let's finish up with Lindsay, and then Sophie, I'll come back to you. Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to share with Lindsay? I saw a couple hands pop up.
I'm going to go.
Please.
So, Lindsay, that's the thing. That's the thing about the angels, patience. You have a get out clause there, patience, because you can do it slowly and do it with breath. Like me being able to go down and lay down by the river, because I now realize that I'm in overwhelm, so I need to move to the side and get out of my own way. And the thing is that with the angels talking to you and coming through you enough for you to decide to put a book together and publish that, then obviously you're being universally led by the love of God. So you can chill into that, sweetheart. Just, Sophie says, just affirm the good things that you can do, because obviously the angels teach you how to live in gratitude. So maybe just run off the gratitude. Oh, I'm really, actually, I can go for a walk now. Actually, thank you for that download. Actually, what about the shadow of showing you that actually you've lived your life as a truck driver and it actually doesn't suit you? So now you're stepping into your power. You are actually stepping into your power by making these other decisions for yourself. So I'm just thinking maybe like you're hard on yourself, and that will be, there'll be another shadow around you somewhere that tells you that's how you're supposed to be because of the society that you grew up in or something. Oh, what's that one about what we inherited in our womb, in the womb? The fear that we inherited through the pregnancy that our mothers had. Which one is that?
The course here.
Yeah, that one. So have a look at that one. As much as I know, you have to stay in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But yeah, no,
which
that's
one are
love.
we talking about?
Which one is it?
That's where you were. That's what you were talking about. Was core?
No, which one is the core?
Yeah, that's the way to go, I reckon.
Did you say which one is the core, Lindsay?
Yeah, which?
So it goes. It's in the Venus sequence. It's the same as your vocation.
Oh.
If you see that there.
Oh yeah, my vocation. That's a 52.
Oh, I think let me see if I've got that one.
Which is the shadow of stress, gift of restraint, and the genius of stillness.
All right, there you go, sister.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
You're on track.
You're on track.
Yeah, stillness is good for me, and I love my meditation practice. But I'm aligned too, and that is marketing. I get to market angels.
Yeah.
Whether people are up for that or not, but they are more than ever now.
They are.
And marketing, think of marketing isn't so much as we think of marketing as it pertains to business. Marketing in the Gene Keys is really about aligning yourself to an idea that speaks to your heart and then sharing that idea with the world. That's all marketing is. It's a way of getting something that's important to you out to other people. And it seems, again, you're doing that. I think everyone is right, and just being kind to yourself and having some fun from time to time, I think, is something that's going to make a lot of difference in your life.
Yeah, thanks. I would like to make a living at it.
Sure.
I hope I can integrate that.
Can I ask Lindsay a quick question? Lindsay, do you have any type of support outside of, I don't know where that's going, but just anyone else to talk to? Because I know that's a tough thing when you're starting to go inward, is really that support group. So I guess the question was, do you have anyone that you can talk to or are talking to?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I do have a best friend, and interestingly enough, she has the same 4 keys on the outside ring, only
Oh,
in different positions from me, but we're like
wow.
the mirror image. I'm a Libra, she's a Aries.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
pretty wild. Where I want to still think about it, she's, no, go do it, go do it. So she every morning calls me and says, what are you going to do today? Yeah, thank you. I do have
It's fortunate.
And hopefully this space, I think my intention here is to continue. This has been beautiful so far. And I think my intention here is to continue to do these. I'm not sure on frequency, how often we're going to be doing them, but hopefully that gives you another opportunity to connect and talk about things, Lindsay.
that would be wonderful. Thank you.
That would be great.
Does anybody else have anything to share with Lindsay? Michael, please.
I just wanted to say to Lindsay that I'm so thankful that you were here today, because I see so much bravery and courage. I yesterday went on not a job interview, it was a proposal to increase my financial stability, and it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. After sitting with it, I realized that I was trying to force something to happen out of security, looking for security, which goes back to the codependence thing and patterns. And I'm encouraged by you, Lindsay, because it reminds me, in forgetting, that my vision is let's say this, by the old pattern, my vision is to go in a direction and try to make that happen the way that I've always done it. Therefore, I don't have the correct vision of what it's supposed to be, or what the universe, or what my purpose is. So I perceived what happened yesterday was like, nope, that's not going to happen. You need to sit with this a little bit longer. We need to get you through this path here. And then all this will start manifesting itself. And I really believe that. And I really believe that you were here to encourage me to know that things are happening, but to have faith and to sit with it and be inspired by others who are going through these things, but look at their bravery and their courage, and get to sit back and watch your manifestations in your life, and to be inspired by that. So thank you for sharing.
Lindsay, that is the 5th line leadership right there, right? You had that impact on Michael and you didn't even know. You're just speaking from your heart. That's what it's about. I think oftentimes we think it needs to be this big thing, right? We need to make it a big to do. And if we're not leading hundreds or thousands of people, that we're not having the impact. And that's just not the case. Like when I record a YouTube video, I really tell myself, if I can change the course of one person's life with this video, like that's all that matters.
Right.
Thank you for showing up today.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Is there anything else that's on your heart? You sure?
Oh, well, there's lots, but I'm going to be quiet for now and listen.
Okay. If you want to chime back in, please don't hesitate. Remember, you're not taking up anybody's time or space. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, Sophie, what did you have, my love?
Yeah, it was about the chronic pain, chronic illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
I got some bullets to share, just real quick, but I guess this is an interest for everyone, and I guess it's just composing to the subject you are already putting on the table. We are all waiting for it. But it was a request for someone in the chat, and I say that I am gonna share it right now. No more hesitation, no more procrastination. One thing I did, I had one chronic illness for 11 years. And it was debilitating because I didn't know from where it came from. And this is the thing, when you have a chronic pain, I would say whatever it is, chronic, you cannot see the cause, and this is why it's a loop.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it can get very frustrating because you cannot find, and you don't know the exact cause that made it. And I guess for me was the wake up call when, after 7 years or so when I had this chronic thing. I also developed chronic fatigue, burnout, depression was high level. And I also had IBS, which doctor said that I'm all fine and I'm just stressed, but I wasn't stressed at all. And that was the moment in which I started digging, because at that point I was so developed in everything that was scientifically proven or not proven, everything that was marketed or not marketed, everything in spiritual field, everything in emotional patterning, everything in mental health, everything in hacking, everything. And it just was so frustrating because I couldn't find the answer. And what helped me back then, and I think it's helping in every single chronic thing, is that you need to really, this is what I have to share, not the recipe. It's not the recipe, but what I have to share is that it helps tremendously to slow down and return to the breath. You can meditate or not. Yeah, you can meditate or not, but that's one thing. The other one is to see what you don't want to see. And this is the trick. You don't want to see it, so your consciousness, so your attention is not seeing it. But therefore, you have to go a little bit, a step forward, and be like really brave in your heart, in your meditation, and say what it is that I don't want to see, what it is about me that I don't want to see. Because even though how much we want to believe in the positive things like that, there are things that are ugly, because this world is everything. So ugliness, it is embedded. So you have to see what it is that you consider yourself ugly in yourself or in the world that is happening that you don't want to see. And the other point is to, there is a Jacques Martel dictionary for chronic illnesses. That's also a thing. And you can meditate for that part, what it has to transmit to you. And most and foremost, you have to surrender, because maybe you don't find the answer. And maybe it's okay. And I've been dealing recently with a thing. It just bothered me for 2 years, and it changed something in my job. Something changed in my job, because funny story, I was doing something on a spiritual level, and that affected my job because I wasn't stressed anymore. It didn't show up anymore. So what I was stressed because I was in a position of working a job that I fucking hate, and I'm so brilliant in some other things that I had to work in call service, and I hated it, and I'm not made for that kind of job, that's for sure. And after I made something spiritual, it healed that part. I didn't expect that. Oh my god, now it's the 6th month in which I'm not working and I'm just paid. And I don't know what is happening. But it's, oh my god, this is the real life. This is the real life. So yeah, maybe you won't find the answer. Maybe you have to fix other stuff, other areas in your life. Maybe a relationship, maybe a pattern, maybe something tiny that you don't consider it's a big deal, but your body considers it's a big deal because it's a life force in you. So yeah, this was my thing.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
now I'm receiving the space you offered me. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yes, you are welcome. And I think that's the big piece of the puzzle when it comes to the chronic issues, is that it's not 9 times out of 10, it's not a little thing when that needs to be changed. Obviously it's not a little thing in your body, but it's not a little thing in your life. It's like the structure of your life on a high level is not organized in a way that your higher self wants it to be organized.
Yeah, so maybe it's a little to your perception, but actually it's a much larger thing when you look at like in reality. Yeah,
exactly. Was that for Lila, or was that like, did you say you wanted to talk to her directly? Go ahead. Yeah, chime in, please.
So yes, thank you, Sophie. That was really, really helpful. What I wanted to add is I agree with sometimes it's external situations, but let me tell you something else, and I think it raises it to a spiritual level a little bit more. So I'm anecdotally always ill around my birthday, which is in July, and I have been severely ill again. And it's not always the same. It's sometimes a virus, sometimes it's something else. My mom was saying how I don't know, maybe I had fever around my birthday. And it's one thing that keeps happening to me. And I'm trying to find the answer to why that happens, because this is a pattern, and I'm a 62. I'm like intellect, and I explain everything, and I see patterns, and this is clearly a pattern, but I cannot find an explanation for it. And yeah, it's just this chronic stuff. It's not just one thing. Like, I have lots of other issues with like sinuses, and I think my immune system is weak, but at the same time, as Sophie said, scientifically, I'm on it. I'm doing a PhD, like I can do my research and I'm doing everything right according to the science, yet something is not right and I cannot put my finger on it, and it's driving me insane. So this is why I'm seeking answers to, because this sounds like something generational. This sounds like something I was almost born with, because ever since I was a baby this keeps happening to me, and I'm just here at the Gene Keys, maybe trying to find these answers.
For sure. What if you didn't need to find the answer?
I'm a 62 personality, line 3, so I do need to, it's interesting. Obviously I'll take it in. But yeah, I'm a line 3 person.
Do you need to know? Do you need to know what happens, or do you want to feel better?
I want to feel better. It makes me angry. Like, I'm at the point of, I'm angry at myself for physically not being there.
What if? I think that's probably worth digging into a little bit more. Yeah. A little bit of exploring if that's what's coming up for you. If it's anger and not gentleness and not being kind.
No, it's definitely not being kind. I am angry.
And that's part of the process too. Like, we have to move through anger, so that's okay. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Andrea, please go ahead.
There we are. It's your mother's fault. All right. Plain and simple.
Always.
Okay, and seriously, okay, I just came home from a trip back home. I'm in Ottawa, Canada, and I'm from Winnipeg. Strong Ukrainian Catholic background, church, everything, and then marriage, breakdown, all that kind of stuff. And this past visit of 12 days of being back in the motherland, literally, and in the heart of everything that raised me, and being able to reconnect with people who formed me, and to be able to have that relative perspective, that triangulation of perspective, because everything is a trinity. It's not a duality. And that's what we are now entering into in this next phase of the collective, right? If you're tuned into that part of the collective, other people are not, right? But honestly, what I have to say is it absolutely sounds generational, but also you got to use that anger. Like, it's about the energy of it. It's get angry at something and don't turn it in on yourself, even though, yeah, we have to be accountable to ourselves and own it. But it's okay to get angry at something else for a little while, because sometimes we need to go through that and step through that in our minds in order to get to a better perspective on what's really happening. But also, don't hold on to what's so hard. And that's what I'm saying. Okay, so my background is marketing, communications, writing, editing, also philosophy, like a lot of philosophy. My ex-husband is a theoretical physicist. So I lived the life, like he had lunch with Stephen Hawking sort of thing. And my life was penny, but I was also a technical writer. So I helped people I helped a lot of colleagues, his colleagues from around the world, with their PhD thesis, with all that kind of stuff. So having to sit with somebody and listen and find 0 point basically for what they're talking about, because they couldn't articulate something, is what have been really good at. So the logic of having to, like, okay, I'm going to find this, I'm going to go through this. You are so not alone, because it's not just with it's with everything that we do. That's how you attack your life. But that's the thing, you don't have, in that academic environment, you end up attacking, like you're like, have to prove. And so much of it is just then having to step back and just say, all right, I've got to look at this in the third person. And that's maybe what my challenge is to you, is that it is personal for you. Obviously, it's happening over. But the challenge is to step back and don't be afraid to release it to the point where you can actually start to be friends with it. Do you know what I mean? Like just to start looking at that part of yourself and say, you know what, you've been trying to tell me something my entire life. And I've been just pissed off at you because I thought that I'm supposed to do this. I'm sorry. And this is how I'm supposed to be around now. But this seems to be the only place that you're going to be able to talk to me and tell me, your body, tell you what you need to hear. So my challenge to you in a loving way is just say, fine, let's lay down, let's crawl into bed for 3 days and let's talk it out. Let's snuggle up a little bit, throw the pillows at each other and just see what comes up. Do you know what I mean? And just give it a chance to fluff out. And I'm happy to talk to you about this, about stuff, because I get you. I've got the 63, 64, and I'm, like I said, that's one of my things. And the 62, I look and I go, I'm not connecting to it. I have a feeling you could help me connect with that a little bit, because that's where I've had a really good relationship with other people with that key. And we've had some breakthroughs in big ways as I look back on my path, because I've only been into this for a couple of years. So now that I see, because I've been like everywhere I go, I'm like, okay, when, birth date, time, everything. And I'm running people gene keys constantly. And it's like my thing. I've been finding out a lot. So I'd be happy to work with you. But yeah, that's what I've got to kind of contribute. Thank you.
Just to validate you, Andrea, you made me very emotional because I am in therapy because of my mother, who has borderline personality disorder, who was neglected. And my PhD is in parenting and children's emotional development. So we have come full circle.
Yes.
I just wanted to tell you that.
Yep, absolutely. And my 3 children, I have 3, they're 20, 18, and almost 16. And part of the divorce, part of the, I'm sorry, everybody, if I'm plugging the conversation, but this is just so relevant. Like my daughter is worried that she's got bipolar. I'm pretty sure my ex-husband does, but it's just depression. And that's as far as it goes. But all of my kids have, like we all do, but I can see where their underlying stuff is, so to speak. But yeah, the bipolar, that's really amazing. So don't feel guilty about being angry with her. Don't feel guilty. And I'm sure you're not, but it's, I don't know, it's not to placate it, but you're not alone. And it's, it is what it is. I don't know. But that's amazing. And I would actually love to talk to you about that stuff, because with my kids too, there's things that are coming up now that they're starting to dive into their stuff. And parenting is hard, really hard.
Thank you.
But better when you have perspective. I would wish that you could have that with your mom at some point. God knows this past week and a half with my mom, we had a lot of breakthroughs. And some of it was yelling at each other. And some of it was awesome. And I'm afraid to call her right now because I think I left something there that I need. But I'm like, I don't want to ask her because she's going to say, I told you. And it's just, it doesn't end. Never. Anyway, thank you.
April, do you have some? Thank you, Andrea. Much
Pleasure.
appreciated.
Thank
April, do you have something for Lila? Or is it Lila? Am I saying that right?
So it's Lila, but it's
Lila.
Everybody calls me Lily, so it's fine.
Which do you prefer?
Let's do Lily.
Okay, Lily. April, please.
Yeah, first I wanted to say thanks to Andrea for sharing all of that. And then Lily, one of the things that I was thinking about was, I don't remember if it's gene key 18 or 17, but there's this one part that says, is it better to be right or better to be happy? And when I heard that, it hit really hard because I have both of those in mine, and it's all about judgment and opinions and like trying to know what everything is. And I love what Andrea was saying, being friends with your anger, because that's something that I've made a practice of mine, because I used to be a very angry person because of all the things that have happened to me. And so I would just be really angry, and I had really intense mottos that I would live by and creeds that would get me in trouble. And I was like, I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for being connected to anger. But it was that, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? So a lot of the times when I work with people with a lot of chronic issues. And so when my clients are trying to figure it out and diagnose it, I'm like, great, now you have a diagnosis, but what are you going to do about it now? The diagnosis is great. The information is awesome, but it's not right. it's not what's going to make you happy. So I just wanted to echo everything Andrea said, and then also throw that piece in there for 17 and 18. I can't remember which one it is. Maybe someone here knows, but I think that gene keys, also those two are really
18.
to listen to. 18. So the opinion and the farsightedness and omniscience, then I think 18 is a good one to read and pay attention to all of those opinions and thoughts and ideas, and just letting it go, and then doing like Andrea said, laying in bed. I'm a big proponent of laying in bed for many days and being like, what's happening to me? That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, April. That's a big piece. I see you, Emmanuel. Give me 1 second, then we'll come over to you. P.S. A couple housekeeping things. There are 8 people whose screen I cannot see. So if you are one of those 8 people, if you want to chime in, a hand raised to the camera isn't going to work, but there is a hand button that you can press, and that will let me see that you have your hand raised. And then the other thing that I had was, is it Andrea or Andrea?
They all work.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I get
Okay.
told all kinds of stuff. Every iteration of my life.
What do you like?
I like hearing how the person. I like how you like. Honestly, it's how I like hearing what the other person interprets. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I respond
for
to
sure.
it.
Okay.
I get
so-
Andrea. I get Andrea. I get Andy from my childhood.
Got it.
Yeah, Mom,
Well,
hey you, whatever.
This one is something that Andrea said that I addressed at the beginning of the call, but I know some folks have popped in after that, which is, you are not taking up time and space on this call. We are here to have deep conversations with one another. We're here to go as far as each exchange needs to go, and it'll go as far as it needs to go. And everyone else is learning from the one-on-one conversations that are being had here. That's our role on this call, is to apply what's being discussed to our life. So nobody's taking up time or space. Emmanuel, where are you at, brother? You gonna chime in?
So for me, there's 2 comments I would like to Lily. I just absolutely love Lila. Sorry, I'm French, and it's Lila is one of my favorite flowers. And one of my daughters' name is Lilu, so it's close enough. So when it comes to chronic disease, and everything I'll say here is from my own experience. So I don't know about the science. I know a bit about the science of it because I'm a geek for research. Like standard medical science is not there. So what happened to me was I basically ended up in the hospital. That was 4 years ago, after a lifetime of not taking care of myself, and up to a point where I had a talk with the surgeon, and he said, "You will not heal from this. You need surgery." And I was like, "Fuck off. I'm going home." And I didn't say it like that. I was very polite. But basically, I was I've never felt pain like that in my life. I was in deep pain. I went back home, wasn't able to walk for 2 months, spent 2 months in bed, just looking at myself and doing everything that I could to heal. So I was meditating, contemplating a lot. I did so much stuff like acupuncture. I went the holistic way. But the big takeaway for me was understanding the symbology of my ailments. And I researched like the internet like crazy to really have a deep understanding from the symbology of it, and relating that to my life and my experiences. And it was so dead on that there's absolutely no question in my mind that the understanding what the symbology was the spark for me to start healing and starting surrendering and just letting go of those behaviors, emotions. So it wasn't the gene key per se, because when I go into the gene key is such a holistic map that when I look at it, I have a very hard time pinpointing it to the area in my body and saying, this is what was wrong. And when Jay said, do you want to know or do you want to heal? To me, this hits home a lot because from the symbology, I could relate, I would say. I'm still not able to like medically explain it. What I do know is I wasn't supposed to be walking, and today I surf skate, I surf, I'm in health. I couldn't lift my daughters. Like that was shit crazy for me. And at one point I just said, no, that's enough. That's not the life I want to live. Also, the second point, and to Jay's point, my partner is also a therapist, and she works in trauma, and she does trauma release with people. And she always comes back to releasing the emotions without attaching to the story. That doesn't mean that you won't have an understanding of it, because I do have an understanding. I have a story that I came up with. It's just not a medical story. I'll stop here.
Can you tell me a little bit more, Emmanuel, about like in your case, and as much as you feel comfortable sharing, but I just want an example of the symbolism. Like, what was the issue and what was the symbol? Like, what was the association that happened there?
Okay, so I had herniated discs. So I had my first one at 19, and then up the other ones. So right now I have 4. So I have 3 herniated discs, 1 bulging disc. And one morning I went up, got my coffee, and I was like, and something popped. Oh, I sneezed and it popped, right? So when you sneeze and you pop a disc, it's because you're that worse, right? Like you're that not healthy. And the symbolism was all about the pressure. I was putting myself under so much emotional and mental pressure for so many things, but from early in life, because like I started working at 14 to help my mother, and then on and on. I left home very early, and then at 18 and at 20 I was already like in business, and I always had that pressure to make sure everyone was all right, make sure my mom is all right, make sure my employees are all right. Like I didn't start paying myself until a couple of years down the road, when I knew like every one of my employees had it good. And I was destroying my body like that. And that pattern was coming back over and over, because I do have the 33 in my evolution sphere. So I keep on forgetting and I don't see the patterns. So Michael, I relate. So yeah, so that was the big thing for me. The pressure, and specifically linked to being able to, in the material sense, to make sure I have enough, to make sure my family has enough, to make sure my extended family, so my employees have enough, and so on and so forth. Which goes in line with my life's work, because I have the 19 with codependence, and right now what I'm working on is coming up with an economic framework for a collaborative economy, not a competitive one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about changing the underlying structures of the economy so everyone wins, and creating mutually benefiting relationships.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Lily, did that strike a chord for you? Do you have an inkling on the symbolism perhaps of what's happening?
Yeah, I think it's really important. So my 2 things are sinus problems all the time. And then the other thing is, my other terrible thing is my gut. So if there is a stomach bug, I will not cope.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely know there is symbology there. I just don't know what. But so yeah, Emmanuel, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I totally agree. I think I need to really go into this a lot deeper. So thank you.
And Lily, one practice that I use here is journaling to that part of my body. So like I go into a meditation and I try and put my awareness in that part of my body. And then I literally write down J and write down a question. And then I write down typically just like the initials. For me, it's like low back stuff. So I'd write LB : and then just write down whatever came through at that moment. And I'm just having a conversation with my body essentially. And that helped me so much.
Never tried that. That's a really good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lily, is there anything else on this, or do you feel good there?
I feel amazing. I feel like we've achieved a lot here just by having this conversation. So thank you so much for giving me this space. Yes, I have made more progress than I think I have done in the past couple of months just by hearing your opinions. So thank you so much. It was really enlightening.
Good. I'm glad. Let's see. Emmanuel, while you were here, I know that did you have something more that you wanted to talk about on the Pearl and a sharing economy, or were you there?
Yeah, so I've been applying the gene keys with my coworkers. So we have a document. It's like so long, and we're like trying to figure out specifically in the Pearl sequence. Okay, this is my vocation, that line, and we do that for everyone. And we did that like for life's work, vocation, culture, and Pearl. And we try to look at the symbology, like the interrelationships between each of one of us, and be very sensitive to what is each and everyone's role within the purpose of the company. And I was wondering, or it's really an open question for discussion on how to best do that. I know that in human design you have BG5, but I feel I resonate a lot more with gene keys because it's about the internal self, and I see human design more prone to what is exterior. And I really truly believe that by changing the interior first, you make bigger changes. And all my coworkers believe that also. We're trying to basically fine tune those interrelationships between ourselves into linking them with our role within the business.
Beautiful. I actually made a video about this. Have you seen it?
I actually did not.
Yeah. So I have a video about balancing. It's more about balancing spirituality mindedness and business mindedness. And I agree. This is the future. Somebody else just commented, Jessica just said the same thing. This is the way that I think all companies are going to end up heading in one way or another. The first thing that jumped to mind for me, and then I'll open up the floor, is it's really hard to go profile by profile and think about all of those interactions, right? There's just so many, like you end up looking like the genius professor that's got just like crazy hair and crap everywhere, like yarn lines and all sorts of stuff. And so the beauty of the gene keys, in my opinion, is that every single gene key has the same message, right? They're all just different words for the same thing, which is that there is this energy underlying us, this love that is inside all of us. And so I think in lieu of trying to get specific to each person's profile, it's really about setting an environment of what you're doing, right? Acceptance and coming forth with what feels good for you and true for you and how you can best contribute to the group. And it's so easy to get lost in the details sometimes. And in reality, it is the energy underneath the details that's so important. Does anybody have anything that they want to share with Emmanuel? Or if that touched anything for you?
For me, it's like I resonate with that. And I also resonate with the exact opposite.
That's okay. Both always.
Which, because there's so much richness that we're able to identify looking at the specific words and specific relationships, and we were like, of course, look, it says on the map. And when you read it, wow, wasn't that once you've seen it, you can't unseen it.
Mhm.
So now it's so obvious to everyone, and then we're more mindful of it.
For sure.
And because I have this 33 in evolution, like for me, Gene Key really helps me because it is a map. It's that tool of the map, right? Which I always have in my head now. And yeah, it a bit like a compass, but also being very mindful that the map is not the territory.
Exactly. And I agreed. Like the exercise that you did, I think is so valuable and important to be able to see all of that stuff. What I'm saying is once you've seen it, then it's time to feel into it instead of coming back to it constantly over and over again. Who else? I saw Michael, your hand go up again. There's 7 of you that I can't see. So if you got something to say, just hit that hand raise button. But Michael, we'll go to you. You're welcome.
I just wanted to thank Emmanuel for sharing it. Again, it goes back to, for me, it goes back to this place where, you know, I sense and I can hear a lot of depth and wisdom and a lot of intellect from everybody that's been on here that's speaking. And we're all deep, and we have this desire to go in this direction of obtaining knowledge to apply. And I really get the sense that something is speaking to it's all there. It's all this wisdom and knowledge is there. It's where do we slow down and integrate into ourselves this energy and this vibe. And so again, for me, this is a point in my life where we're going to simplify everything here. And why I'm thankful for everybody here today is because I've just really get this transparency of, hey, this is something we're all trying to do here. And the most basic foundation of this is just being completely transparent and grateful and humbling down, and then integrating this in a nice, easy, gentle path. So I can appreciate what everybody is saying, and it just feels very gentle and real easy, if you will. Thank you, Emmanuel.
Thanks, Mike. Deb, please. Bye, Renee. Deb, you're muted if you're talking.
I'm talking. I am talking.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to talk to Lily if she's still there. Lil, are you still there?
I'm still here. I'm just eating.
All right, babe. Okay. One of my city is like service, so I'm going to come in with my service here. I don't have to help it anymore. I don't have to hide it. No. A couple of things is your stomach, your solar plexus. That's where all your nerves go. That's where all your nervous systems ends up. And that is also the point of your personal power. So the thing that got me about that is because of I was just going to ask, what is your radiance on the gene keys? Because it would appear that I'm thinking that then you've got that core stability line, haven't you, Jay? From the radiance down to your purpose. So
I'm a 42-32.
I don't know what that means. But
so expectation, detachment, celebration to failure, preservation, and veneration.
Okay. So the other thing is, like, around your birthday time, according to Rosicrucian cyclical law, you can split your year up into 52 days segments. And the 52 days after your birthday are the most powerful point of your year. So if you're going to bed and you're getting all nervous, then basically you're suppressing, this is what I'm thinking, you're suppressing your radiance. So again, like Andrea said, that comes through maybe your call from your mum and all that sort of trauma stuff. And just to help you with the trauma, because as you said you was going in therapy, there's this thing called havening. So when we have trauma, basically what it does is it puts a, you can research this because you're a PhD person. When we have trauma, it attaches physically to our amygdala. So there's this thing, and it's called the 15-minute freedom technique. You can look it up. There's YouTubes on it where you can do it in front of the YouTube. And it's called Havening, H-A-V-E. I'll write it in the thing. And basically what it does is you have to remember the trauma for about a split second. And then you give it a 1 out of 10. And then you do the delta waves. Delta waves is you only get them when you're asleep. So if you do them during the day when you're thinking about something and you distract your mind, it breaks that bit off your brain, so you don't have to do years of therapy. That's why it's called the 15-minute freedom technique. Because like Emmanuel said, once you've got the symbology and you know it, then you can release it. And I think Andrea said that too, is you can release it so you don't have to go through years of therapy, because it breaks off. And you have a more emotional attachment to it, which means that come your birthday and your 52 days of ultimate power, you should feel all right. And then your stomach should, your solar plexus should come in, your personal power should come in. Because if you're completely suppressing yourself, it'll be easy to, instead of going through howling pain and finding out why, you just get rid of it.
Thank you. That's incredible. I've never heard of this, so I have to look into it. But thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure.
Thank you, Deb. That was beautiful. Man, there's so much wisdom and so much knowledge. The people that are on this call, it's amazing to me. That's such high caliber people across the board. I'm so excited. Like, one of the big things that I was worried about was having to curate the call a little bit, and I don't feel like I have to do that at all. Like, everyone is just a powerhouse here. It's so awesome.
Sorry, can I just say, just from a spiritual point of view, if we're going into the new world, you heard about the new world. So it's basically a perspective thing. So some people will stay in the shadow and some people will rise into the city, basically. And I think that's the point that I'm getting from this is, yes, everyone's moving in that direction, like the Emmanuel's business and stuff like that. It is moving into that new paradigm. So the fact that we're collecting together is just another, yeah, wow. We are allowed to step into our cities. That's because we're willing, like you say, to be completely uncomfortable looking at our shadow and moving through them.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you. Sophie, you got your hand up?
Lily, you should see the 22 Jinkies, I think it is. In that Jinkies, it's telling how the dynamic of the chi and how the stomach is a symbolism of that processing. I think it's the 22. I think it's I recently read about it, so maybe you should dig into that. Yeah. And going back to Emmanuel, I'm really interested in your view and in everything that it's about changing the perspective and in the dynamic into business. So if there is any topic about that, or if there is any space for that, please everyone know that I am on it. Yeah. And Andrea, what you said was so lovely when you said to Lila. Sorry, Lily. Okay. That was me.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophie. I appreciate you. Where do we want to go? And Andrea, go for it.
Sorry, just one more thing that was really cool was my cousin and I connecting. It was my mom's 80th birthday, so we had lots of family. I had lots of people that I saw. And my cousin is a physiotherapist, and she specifically, has focused on women's pelvic floor area stuff. So, but she is a healer to her core. One of her clients, for example, came in shortly after our grandmother had died, and her father had also recently died within a couple of years of each other. And so she came in, this healer psychic came in, and that was my cousin's always been in tune, but she at that moment had a moment with the psychic who said, I don't usually do this, but there are two people here to see you. And so she passed on a couple of messages, and then my cousin felt the heat on her cheek of the medium said, your grandmother just kissed you, and she felt the heat like simultaneously, and that blew her away, obviously. But that to say that as her practice has evolved over the last 20 years, 25 years, sorry, she used to come out to visit me and she would do acupuncture. She'd say, okay, you're breastfeeding. So like you have to get underneath your pecs because you're holding the kid. And so she would take the needles and she'd poke them in and she would do a lot of physical manipulation. But she went solo 2 years ago after COVID. And she's had a parting of ways with a multidisciplinary practice she was with. And the really cool thing is that she came over and she said, okay, we'll do a treatment for sure. I found out after she's got like an almost 2-year waiting list with people just in Winnipeg, small city. But she came over and her practice, what she did was so gentle. It was literally breathing, as we all know. I do breath work every day. It was laying hands on the area, and it was just this very gentle allowing, and just to be able to tune in along with her and just to feel like these minimal in like tiny little shifts, and all of a sudden it's like that poof, and your eyes open and you go, wow, what was that? And I do Reiki, I do other stuff. So we were comparing our modalities, and if there's one thing that I can say is that it's if we can just sit and just place your hand on that part of your body, that is like your body's pickup line. They're trying to reach out to us. They're trying to make that connection. So just sit with that pain wherever it is and try to work with it. I've been finding recently, because of my fibromyalgia, my chronic pain. And as a side note, what I heard recently was maybe the pain, this condition, is actually there to help you get to where you need to be. And maybe it doesn't go away. Maybe it's just there. Maybe it is your companion to help you. It's your shadow working with you. Have you thought of that? That the shadow is actually helping, that it's actually an active entity on its own. And that if you make friends with it, it can actually work for you. So if you're having a stomach issue that day, there's a reason for it. Listen to it and say, what's the best way to maybe you need to take the extra hour at home. Trust it. It might feel like things are screwed up when you get into work or wherever you're supposed to be, but just try to trust it. It gets a little bumpy at first, but then it starts to even out. It starts to work for you more and more. All that to say that, just sit with your body. And reach out to the people that you feel that inkling, because all these little points of resistance that we have are these points where our higher being and our body are meeting. That's where we meet in this incarnation. And this is where we see our gene keys come to life. And this is where we see the pattern show up again and again, as we all know, because you guys are all brilliant. Like really, the insights here are fantastic. Yeah, just sit with yourself and just give yourself permission to do that and take a chance.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Lily, are you in a place you can talk? I see your hand up, but I see you moving around.
Yes, sorry. I'm just going back to my daughter, but I just wanted to say this is a bit different, but I wanted to ask about how we would keep this conversation and maybe create like a resource newsletter, because we did the WhatsApp group last time, but it wasn't really wasn't the best thing.
Mhm.
So there's so much knowledge here shared that I would like to, I don't know what I'm thinking, maybe like a collection of like resources that if we could email you or whatever. I just want to put it out there that I would like to have some sort of a resource type of thing.
Heard.
If yeah, okay.
Yeah, so a couple of things on that front. One, I don't know if you were on, but my intention is more than likely this is going to go on YouTube. So I'm recording this call, and so you'll be able to review it. Like that's one important thing. Anytime I take a call like this, I always watch myself to let it soak in a little bit more and to notice things that I didn't notice in the moment. I'm also toying with the idea of some other potential spaces. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but there's a platform called School, for example, SKOL, where you can set up communities and have like a meeting place almost for us. So I'm toying with that idea. The reason I had you guys all register for the call is because I wanted everybody's email so that I can start sending some stuff out more than likely. Of course, I'm going to ask permission before I do that, just so everyone's aware. But I agree, Lily, like this is turning into something much bigger than I anticipated and much bigger than me. So I want to facilitate that as much as humanly possible. I got no hands up. Who wants to chime in? Carrie, do you have the courage to talk about what we traded emails about really quick?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay.
I am curious what people's experience has been while working with the activation sequence. So, people who are experienced in that, the first two spheres, the life's work and the evolution, Richard Rudd says are conscious. And the second two, the radiance and the purpose, are unconscious. And I noticed, like, when I first started working on gene keys, which was a little over a year ago, I decided to start the traditional way and began at the beginning of the activation sequence and was having a little bit of trouble just like feeling connected to it. And I could see some links. I have in my life's work 35-5. It's hunger, adventure, boundlessness. And I could definitely see some things that fit, but I wasn't feeling it. And I went on to the next sphere. And as I worked through the spheres, it felt like I was I was understanding more with the later spheres. So had I started with purpose maybe and gone up to radiance and then evolution to life's work, I felt like I wondered if the way that it like sits in me felt more natural somehow. Like when I got to purpose, I was thinking, oh, that I really get that as something that's really me, but not in the same way that the life's work or the evolution really show up for me. So I can definitely see the hunger happening with really like researching something, especially if it's related to my purpose. And I can go down rabbit holes and like really do like a book thing or a mental thing rather than living into adventure or connecting with my heart. And my evolution is gene key 5, which is impatience, patience, and timelessness. And so I can see ways to just very practically work with being patient, especially in scenarios where my nervous system is feeling activated. And so what I'm curious about is how anybody else's experience has been with like it feels to me like my purpose and my radiance are somehow more conscious or noticeable to me than the ones that I think should be that way. But maybe it's the way I'm like perceiving how they would work, and I could use a shift or something.
So biggie for me is that you're right. Those first two spheres, life's work and evolution, are conscious, and radiance and purpose unconscious. However, a different way to think about that is like your radiance and your purpose are the quality of being that you bring to a situation, right? So it's okay, these are the things that I'm doing, but radiance and purpose are, this is how I'm doing them. This is how I'm showing up. So do you feel like you have a connection to that in your life, like the quality that you show up to things with?
Yeah, okay. I can see how that would apply, the quality of how I show up and how that could shift whether I'm like closer to my shadow or my gift in each of those. And so then how would you relate the other two associated with the quality of showing up?
So the other two are more about the things that you are actually doing in the world. So they're more related to, so like your life's work, for example, is mine is failure, preservation, veneration, 32. And so for me, I know that the big thing that I need to focus on in the doing in my life is to stop worrying about messing up, stop worrying about chasing a specific outcome, and instead to just decide what's actually important and to work on that thing, right? So it's very practical. Like I'm either, it relates to how I'm engaging with the activities that I'm doing in the world. And the thing that I think might be worth spending some time on for you is anytime a gene key doesn't hit for me, it's because I haven't spent enough time with it ultimately. And so really spending some time, and maybe it's you commit to a month of that's what you are doing, is just sitting with that gene key and noticing where it's showing up in your life. The reason that I asked about your connectedness to the quality of consciousness that you have is I'm thinking that perhaps you're more connected to that than the actual things that you're doing, which in my opinion is a great thing.
That's possible. Probably I am connected to that. For example, I have 47 for my purpose, and I've got line 1 for my purpose and my radiance. And so maybe part of it is like being that line 1 and just feeling like maybe it just really sits there for me. And to come from either a place of I'm feeling really oppressed, or I'm seeing opportunity for transmuting something, can make a huge difference. And also my radiance is 22, and I can definitely see, especially in relationship, when I'm being like, when I show up more graciously than when I'm like dishonoring, especially if I'm dishonoring myself, then I will dishonor the other person, the relationship. And those are very noticeable to me, like you were saying. And I was thinking to myself last night, some of what might be the process for me too is if I'm, depending on what quality I'm coming from, if I'm in the shadow or the gift of the, if I'm in my core stability, or if I'm more unstable, then I will be naturally more patient. If I'm exhibiting more of a quality of my gift, then the patience will come more naturally rather than forcing or just being so impatient and hungering for comfort or for knowledge or for whatever it is that I happen to be like really wanting in that moment. And if I can sit in being gracious with myself and others with transmutation, then it's easier for me to let go and be like more in the adventure side of it and be okay with spontaneity or be okay with like unknowing. So yeah, that helps me to understand the interaction of those four.
And just remember, your profile is a tool and your intuition knows better than it does. So if you feel like you connect more deeply to those two spheres, lean into that and that'll open up the other two. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like Emmanuel said, it is a map. And at the same time, sometimes the map doesn't get us to where we want to go without taking a step in a different direction first.
And thank you for that. I have thought that too. It's like Richard says, really use it however is going to work for you. Yeah. And that is what I've done, is just, if that's the way it sits with me, then that's what I'm going to go with for now. And when the right time comes around for the other ones to really appear better. But also my intention has actually been pretty much what you were just suggesting about sitting with one that isn't making as much sense. Like when I first started, I tend to want to know where I'm at with things. And so I wanted to make my way through the whole thing and kind of see my whole picture to at least a basic extent, and really work through some of the Venus sequence, because relationship and emotion, like that relationship is really, and so now I'm getting back to, I want to start with the life's work and sit with it some more. Now that I know like where it fits with everything else and what, just like my whole picture, I feel like maybe new things will come up. So
For sure. It's beautiful. Does anybody have anything that they want to share with Carrie? April, do you have something in there? For some reason, I feel like you got something.
I was reflecting on what you were saying, Carrie, because I feel similarly. I really understand my radiance and purpose a lot more than my life's work and my evolution. While it does come naturally for me to sit in stillness and restraint in my evolution, it doesn't come naturally for me to sit in bliss, because it's like dissatisfaction and vitality and bliss. And I have a lot of vital energy, like I'm very energetic, but I still don't really get those two. So what I noticed is that I really understood the shadow, judgment, and opinion, and farsightedness, and like my integrity. Those are two things that I really stand for, like a lot. And so now what I've been doing is, since I don't understand bliss and stillness, I've been looking at wherever I'm dissatisfied and being like, what if I was in the ultimate bliss about this? What would I do? And the answers that I've been trying to figure that out is just by sitting in restraint and stillness, because I am normally an active person who's like in integrity and like doing all these things. So what I realize is that the integrity or the radiance and the purpose tends to be something I act out, and I can just like physically do it. And then the other two are like more, I get really heady about it, because I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can be blissful, or I don't know if I can act this thing out, and I don't know if I can sit still. I don't sit still. Like I've been told this. I'm in a lot of online meetings. I don't sit still. And so what I've been doing is I've been like looking at the dissatisfaction of things and then seeing how I can act it out, because I think acting it out is something that really helps me. So I'm like, okay, what does bliss look like for me in this moment? What would I do? And then I would sit in that and see, do I actually feel comfortable in that? Maybe I don't. And then I act it out later, because stillness and restraint is one of them. So but I guess my point is there's an idea of action that is helping me understand those two better than just trying to mentally grasp it, because they don't come naturally for me. But it does come naturally for me to sit in dissatisfaction, because it goes with judgment and opinion, and just be like, But yeah, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. That's the other thing. I just like, because my word's bliss, I'm like, let's have fun. Like, how do I have fun? And yeah, and then what happens is, through acting it out, what I've been noticing is that actually those two things do come naturally to me. I've just been getting in my head about it, and I've been allowing the programming of the world to shift the way that I show up, because people don't typically like me being super vital and blissful. I got made fun of my whole life for that. And so I had played it down a lot and kind of really came into this mental component about it. It's, oh, I can't share if I'm happy, or I can't be the one full of energy, because everyone's like, why are you such a spaz? And then I can't be the one that then it scares people when I go from fully spastic to just sitting in stillness and not doing anything. And everyone's, wait, what is happening with you? And so it scares people. So instead, I'll pretend like I'm stressed out. I do all these lower vibrational frequency things to help the rest of the world see it. Yeah. So I've just been really acting it out and then seeing how the world responds to my actions, since the other two are things that I tend to do unconsciously, acting out, and I understand them on a deeper level, because I feel like I love going into my unconscious a lot more. And then, yeah, just to finalize it one more time, maybe the consciousness part is what I am really becoming and showing in the world, and people are conscious of it, and they have shamed me for that, which then leads to my unconscious judgments and opinions, which then turn into myself and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I didn't understand those two, and I've just been acting them out and then seeing how the world shows me what I already knew, and then being like, I'm going to do it anyway.
Does that
Thank
hit
you.
home, Carrie? Yeah.
Yeah, it is to act it out and see what happens with other people. I think that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, it's you have two super powerful words. I have 35 in my SQ, and it's boundlessness and timelessness, right? And boundlessness is one of the miracle cities. Like he says in the Gene Keys book, it's like the only shortcut in the book, right? It is a powerful one, and I agree with April. It's like, how can you act boundlessly in the world? And if that feels too big, how can you embrace the adventure that is life? April, I knew you had something in there. That was way better than I could have come up with. Does anybody else have anything that Andrea, I see your hand up. Do you have something for Carrie?
I have the 35-3 and 5-3 for my life purpose and evolution too. And then I also have the 63-5 and 64-5. So I'm opposite of, well, not the lines, but of Richard. So I've always been really engaged in what he says and how he says he's doing his stuff. I thought, okay, if he's doing this, then I should be doing something brilliant too. But I'm a 3-5. So it's like, all right, I'm doing it to show it's not supposed to be done. But part of it is, what's so important is the community. Like, really, it's just like, for me, not being the fool, but embracing the fool and just embracing this, you know what, it's just going to happen. And being boundless and adventurous is a lot of fun. But then I get so fucking impatient when things aren't going the way I want them to go, or my imagination just goes bazooey in that way, and then my radiance is the truth and the inquiry and the doubt. And then when those actual moments of truth hit, and it was, oh, I want to tell this person, but it won't be heard. So there's some frustration in there too. So half the time, Carrie, for me, it's just, I just go, you know what? I just got to entertain myself in that way. I just got to go, like, that outward action. It's going to hit and miss all the time. But so the important thing for me is that helps me to integrate and to wind them up, because each of the spheres is holographic. So it's like you go from one to the next, but they all layer and they all work together. They integrate together. So yeah, I just do it for my own amusement for the most part. If something doesn't quite work, well, you know what? Try again. And that's, try to have, who was it? The memory of a goldfish. Although goldfish do have memory. I forget what I was watching recently. Just forget it, and just try the next thing again. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything for Carrie? Yes, Manuel, please.
I just want to bounce back on, for me, what you said, my biggest takeaway, and now it's so obvious. I don't know why I didn't see it like that before, but radiance and purpose, like for me also, is just something that I don't think about it. I just do it. And that's the whole point. I don't need to think about it. It just happens. While my life and my challenge, like, I'm thinking about it all the time. So yeah, grateful for that takeaway. Thank you.
I agree. That was some serious juice that you shared. That opened up a lot in my brain too. I'm just like spinning and spinning. All right, we are approaching 3. I said this at the beginning of the call. I don't have anywhere to go. I'm good to hang out as long as we want to hang out and talk. I also just want to, anybody that feels like they got to go, by all means, you're not hurting anybody's feelings getting out of here, and nor do I want anybody to leave. But nonetheless, I also know we've been on for a couple hours. With that, where else do we want to go? Who's got something? April, please.
I have a question. And I'm open to anyone sharing anything. I'm similar to what Carrie was saying, and I haven't dived too much in the Venus sequence, but relationship is always really important to me. because of work and just all the things that I do. And so I was really trying to see how the Venus sequence really connects with the Pearl sequence, because obviously unpacking relationships and then how I'm showing up in the world as well, since I'm constantly in relationship for what I do, then, what I don't really have a question. I'm realizing this is a part of who I am, is that I don't know what my question is, but I have a question. And so what I've been doing lately is just sharing out loud that there's a question there, and maybe someone knows what the question is because they have an answer. So that's Venus sequence into Pearl sequence. So maybe the SQ into vocation or something, since the two connect. Any wisdom thoughts there? I'm open into discussing if someone has anything.
I'll kick it off to buy everybody some time. But the first thing that came up for me is the sphere of vocation, which is also the sphere of your core, right? Like those two sequences are joined right there. And the way that they are joined is that your deepest wound, your core wound, is once transmuted, the gift that you have to share with the world. So your deepest pain, your deepest struggle, your deepest hurt turns into the fuel that you use to help and serve. The other big piece of it is it's hard to the Pearl is about productivity, right? It's about prosperity. It's about doing things out in the world and engage. And in order to do that, we need to engage with other people. And until we've done the Venus work, it makes those interactions a little bit more tricky, because we have a hard time identifying what's ours and what's somebody else's. What are my patterns? What am I contributing energetically to this situation versus what is somebody else bringing into this? And so when we're trying to navigate a space where we're trying to create prosperity for ourselves and for the world, we need to know those things. We need to know how our astral field is affecting our interactions with everybody else around us.
I love that. So would you say that the vocation is a space where, because since I already mentioned this, I'm all about action and adventure. And I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a really like how and why person. And I never ask the why. I'm always like, what do I do? What's happening? What's the adventure? What's the next thing? And so would you say that vocation, like the words there in that sphere, even though it's where there's a deep wounding, is there an action to be taken there? Is there like a step that will move that forward? And also, I'm going to share this so that it's out there. Mine's a 59 too. So the shadow is dishonesty, the gift is intimacy, and the city is transparency. And so it's very like, it's very juicy, scary, and like awesome all in one, because those are all things I love and all things I'm afraid of too at the same time. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I guess that's what came up when you were speaking is, is there an action there that's going down?
Yes. So a couple things came up for me just then. Number one, specific to you, is the second line at the core is denial. So one action is where sit down and write down, do a journaling practice. What denial's tough because you can't see what you can't see, right? But that's why it's so important to be there with it. So that's one specific action that I would give you. The other thing that popped into my brain hilariously, the pathway that connects the sphere of your vocation and the sphere of your culture is called the pathway of initiative. So it is literally all about taking action. And the pathway of initiative, Richard likens it to stealing fire from the gods. So it's all about going inside and being adventurous enough and having enough courage to share that really scary thing that you might not even be aware of yet, and transforming that and then sharing it with the world. So the action is, how can I use this thing that's deep inside of me? How can I bring it out? What are ways that I can manifest that in the real world?
I love that. That's beautiful. Especially since I was figuring out there's this concept called a flywheel. and it's in business about what your gifts are and where you start and where you end. You probably know. And what I recognized was like the beginning of my flywheel is I'm a no to something. I'm like, no, or like in denial. I'm like, no, not at all, not happening. And then I have to have an outside influence come in. And then there's an internal processing that happens after that. So I love that idea of stealing the fire, the Promethean fire, and activating that. I think that's my question. It feels really good and juicy to just really sit with that. And it goes with that flywheel. Every day I'm asking myself, what am I a no to? So I could also ask, what am I in denial of at the same time?
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything they want to share with April? Yes, Carrie.
I don't know exactly about action, but when I think about my vocation, I also have 59 there. And I have 59 in my culture and in my pearl. Like it dominates my pearl sequence. And to me, it's like the whole Venus sequence. It culminates there in that if I'm like doing all of the Venus things that I need to do for cultivating my emotional and my mental and my spiritual being,
Pardon me, guys.
and the relationship,
Dear.
then it's almost like I have this maybe hope, but if I'm getting all of the Venus right, then my gift will almost like naturally show up when I'm like doing, when I get to the vocation. Like intimacy, I'm going to be so much better at intimacy if I'm better at some of those other spheres. And I noticed that I have a 2 as well in my vocation. So the denial, I had just like right previously before I started on the gene keys, I had been doing Enneagram stuff, and I'm a number 9. And one of the big things for 9s is being honest. I've been a people pleaser, and having this major thing where I'm like, oh man, I have been so much more dishonest than I have ever thought I have been in my life. And that one just popped right out at me when I started Gene Keys, and because there was 3 of them there, and I had just been doing like personal insight work on that, and noticing that the denial had been there. And I guess I just wanted to share that. I don't know if it's helpful at all with the action, but that's how I've been seeing mine so far.
Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful to know, because I am witnessing my Venus sequence playing out in relationships. It's been fun to just see where things are happening in friendships and then thinking, oh, how does that relate to the words? And without me even really researching what the words are, just being, how does that relate to the words? And I've been noticing that a big thing is it's like the compromise, and I like compromise secretly, which leads to, maybe that's like part of the denial, which leads to dishonesty, because I'm not telling people I compromise because I don't actually believe in compromise. And then my friends know that, but then they think I'm not compromising, but I'm secretly compromising, and I'm not telling them I am, because it's a thing that just I think naturally compromise really happens within ourselves before we even speak it out. We're doing it all the time and we're not telling people. So that was really helpful. Yeah, that is. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Dishonesty has a lot. We think about being dishonest with another, like saying something dishonest, but there is a lot of internal dishonesty that we are not willing to look at a lot of times. Like you were talking about earlier, right? I need to pull my energy back because people think it's too much. That's you being dishonest with yourself. Do you feel good there, April? Do you have anything else?
No, I feel great. I have to leave too. I have another meeting, but I'm
Cool.
really grateful for this group and being able to speak this out. It's been really wonderful to find people. One of the things I've been sharing is that something I've noticed is that if I try to talk to some people in my group about my personal work, and I talk about my shadows or my faults, they'll use my shadows and faults against me in the future, saying, oh, like my compromise situation. So I've been stopping telling people I don't compromise, because then I tell them and then they're like, oh yeah, but you don't compromise. And I'm like, no, I do, but I don't believe in it in the way that people think. So I'm really enjoying having a group to come to and not being, no one's going to use it against me. And I'm just being like, okay, I can just share what's on my mind and all my faults, and it's going to be okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And that's one of the things that Richard says is never, ever, if you know somebody's birthday and you go and look at their profile, you are not to bring their shadows to them, period, ever. Like, trust me, they know about their shadows. What you need to bring to that person is their city. Hold that for them. Hold that energy. And those are the people I want to be around.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm going to head out now.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you for being here. Anybody else got
Yes, Jay,
anything?
that's the big, sorry, the challenge this whole trip I had was that holding people in their city,
Yes.
holding that space. It was incredible what happened in moments where I did versus when I didn't. And these are people I've known my entire life pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting a break from them, getting that space. So for everybody, like, you get space from something, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. Then you can come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. You have no idea how your work, when I found your video that first time, I was like, hallelujah.
You were there pretty early, honestly. Like, you were one of the first ones around.
You remembered me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yay.
I mean,
your
you were
stuff
like
was
one
amazing.
of the first comments I ever got, I think.
Yes. No, because I'm like, finally somebody is like, can relate to all these different things, and just, yeah. And the way you're bringing it across, I'm all for Richard's way of doing things. Don't get me wrong. Again, I have the Eastern Christian theological background. I was meditating when I was a kid in front of icons. I get this stuff like that. We just did it, and I get the benefit of it. But hence, I guess, like Carrie, the adventurous part of my life's work, where I had to get out of that and get into everything else metaphysical, right?
Yeah.
But to be able to bring it into an arena where it's hands-on and it's every day, and I'm working through this, and it's a very different arena, right?
For sure. And
So-
Richard is just so like poetic and so soft and gentle. And I'm not those things a lot of the times. Like, I'm much harder, much rougher around the edges, much more. It's just a totally different approach. And I oftentimes try and soften a little bit more. And at the same time, like, I recognize I am who I am, and it resonates with people in my way too. So be it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that comes out again and again. You just gotta soften it and just be yourself, because that's where people are going to meet you. And when you're natural, and even if you're feeling defeated at times, even in that moment of like defeat, you're actually letting go and letting yourself emerge into that place you feel is a void. Like, I'm not there, but you open up, and then it just fills in with what you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's just exhausting to be somebody you're not. It's just so, I did that. My whole last business was like, same deal. Like, I was the leader of this like 300-person tribe of people and was always in front of them talking, and it wasn't who I was. And you want to talk about a fracture, like, that was tough stuff. So refreshing to just show up and be who I am.
Carrie, I can totally relate. And do you have a 1 and 2? Like, what's your...
In my activation sequence?
Yeah.
I have 5s in my first 2 and 1s in my second 2.
Okay. So you're like, when you're coming at it, like, you're new into that path. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So coming in as a 1 is that unconsciously you are seeing everything from like a first time perspective. So it can be really astonishing and really overwhelming, and really, like, for me, like, it just, because you don't have it's you're coming in fresh usually, because the 2s are you have a relative point to bounce things off of, but you are just starting. It's like splat, like Abraham Hicks says, splat. Ooh, here I am. Okay, people. And you were literally like being shoved out the doors. Okay, you're doing this. But meanwhile, you've got the 5 as well, which is already the leader. So now like you're taking this bit where you're supposed, like your life's work is to lead. I've got the 3-5. So I'm naturally supposed to be leading, which I did and have done, like you just, as I'm doing right now, I'm sorry. But that bit of the 1 is, I know it can feel debilitating, and it can feel like, what do I do with this? But that is what you're doing. You're just letting it be, because you're moving to the 2. You're moving to partner it with something. And in adventure, it can be tough to get there, but yeah, again, surrender it.
That key took me a long time to sit with. 35 took me a very long time. I did not understand it for a year. Yeah, I had such a hard time with it.
Yeah, and that's just what I do, honestly. Like it's, and that, if anything, is the thing that again, just my own recent stuff where my friends are saying, yeah, Andrea, you just like, all of a sudden you're like, boom, and you're living here and you're living there. You've got, do it, like you just gonna think, what the heck, why not?
Yeah.
But it's getting over that resistance. And believe me, I have sat back for the last few years, and it's been very uncomfortable, because helping my kids work through their things too, or trying to just being present for that kind of stuff, which is having the adventure boundless, and feeling like I also am supposed to be, okay, I'm supposed to be doing something, but it's hard to just be at home, and with COVID, or just be at home with kids. One suicidal, one, but yet they're coming out, they're going to university, they're now doing stuff, but it's hard to let that stuff sit and let it get to that point. It's like the crucible. It gets to a point, pretend you're making sauerkraut. It has to sit for a few weeks before it can do any good, right? Or a good kombucha.
Yeah.
So we're kombucha. That's what we are.
I just had a hard time with the connection between hunger and adventure. That's what I couldn't link in my brain. I could not figure out how did one lead to the other. And then all of a sudden I had this aha moment. And I feel that hunger was such a huge driver in my life. I was an addict. And that was why I was an addict. I'm trying to fill this hole. And I see that in my behavior so much, instead of just enjoying what's right in front of me. It's a toughie.
Yeah. I'm gonna be with 35 next. So
perfect.
Yeah, it can be pretty overwhelming. Another way I start to think of it, because of my physics, the general relativity connection, just that every person, every moment is a black hole. Like when you think about the wormholes that you can go down, but literally we are each a black hole. We're on the other side of the black hole that we chose to come into spirit, into the 0 point. And now we're just out the other side of the other, and that's the torus, right? The donut torus that goes around. And that blows my mind all the time, where I keep thinking, okay, this is just particulate matter. It's just traveling, and we're just iterating, and we're aggregating this and aggregating that. And what do I want to aggregate next? Or how do I want to go about it? Yeah.
I meditate with that energy a lot. I have this basically a visualization where I'm I just picture the energy coming up from the base of my spine up, and then just all the way out and around my body, and then back down and up and in. And sometimes it takes me to some pretty deep spaces, for sure.
That is awesome. Constance Metzner, another YouTuber, she just released yesterday, I think, just a little bit on the 12 chakras, like the astral body, the root below. And it was just really nice to get that reinforced again, because it helps to just for me too, to pause and just get that all together. And there's my daughter back from work.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Let's call it good. Yeah.
Thank you again,
Thank
Jay,
you.
so much. I'm so happy to just connect with you finally, because you've been someone like me.
I agree. Thank you guys so much for being here, and just keep your eyes out. We'll do one in a couple weeks, probably.
Yeah.